Karun is a world dominated by non-avian dinosaurs. But this wasn't always the case. Before dinosaurs, this role belonged to an entirely different clade of diapsids referred to as pseudosuchians, also informally known as crocodile-line archosaurs, one of the two major branches of the archosaurs, with the other one being the avian or bird-line archosaurs. The Droiosuchid Postosuchus kirkpatricki, in fact, was one of the first large predators from Earth ever introduced to Karun. Dinosaurs came much later, which allowed the Droiosuchids to diversify into a variety of families. For tens of millions of years, these so-called neopseudosuchians were the dominant archosaurs on Karun. While dinosaurs have replaced most of them long since, there's a widespread clade descending from these animals that persists to this day, almost unrecognizable as Droiosuchid descendants, after more than 200 million years. Some made it to the top of the food chain again, and proved themselves a serious competition for the dinosaurs: the Aurisuchians. Aurisuchia are a clade of neopseudosuchian archosaurs first appearing around 110 million years ago. Pseudosuchia means false crocodiles and was first used for Triassic crocodilian-like archosaurs, but later findings concluded that pseudosuchia also includes the true crocodiles, meaning that the so-called false crocodiles include actual crocodiles. Sounds ironic, but this makes Aurisuchians much more closely related to crocodiles than their deceivingly dinosaur-like appearance might suggest. They certainly converged on some dinosaur traits. Aurisuchians are endothermic, or at least mesothermic, and Electrognathids as well as Droiosuchids evolved derived air sac systems, most apparent in the Droiosuchids, a family of remarkable long-distance runners. Most of them are digitigrades, and their legs are positioned underneath their bodies. Other traits clearly distinguish them from dinosaurs as well as their ancestors. Aurisuchians can pronate their wrists, unlike the theropod dinosaurs they might look close to. Their skull anatomy differs from pseudosuchians and dinosaurs. Most apparent, though, are their external ears, unique outside of mammalians. This is referred to in their name. Aurisuchia means ear crocodiles. The first Aurisuchian preserved in Karun's fossil record is Aurisuchus primus, living around 110 million years ago. During this time, pseudosuchians still dominated the planet. Since the Triassic extinction did not happen on Karun, they could grow incredibly diverse, even more so than on Earth. At the time the first Aurisuchians emerged, Karun found itself in a hothouse age. Vast tropical rainforests covered much of the land, and sea levels were considerably higher. Even the poles were lush forested habitats. The earliest Aurisuchians developed within the dense dark canopy of the rainforest, shadowed by much larger relatives. A precise sense of hearing seemed to prove advantageous to these small generalists. Modern crocodiles have a flap of skin to close off their ear openings, for protection during dives. The ancestors of Aurisuchians likely had a similar trait that eventually was refined and specialized, turning into an articulated, cartilage-supported structure somewhat resembling the external ears of mammals. This granted the Aurisuchians an increased capability of precise directional hearing. Furthermore, it served in communication and protection of the ear. Around 100 million years ago, a new group of animals was fully introduced to Karun. New species of dinosaurs started challenging some of the neopseudosuchians in their position as the dominant clade of archosaurs. The struggle went on for a few million years before tectonic activity and climate instability caused a substantial shift in Karun's conditions, which would eventually lead to an extinction event in many parts of the planet. The climate cooled and became more arid, while ice shields started covering the poles, wiping out most of the lush home this region once was to many organisms. The rainforests retreated back towards the equator, replaced by deserts and scrublands. First grass analogues started to form and led to the emergence of Karun's first prairies. The drop in sea levels and ocean currents led to a mass extinction of marine organisms, and the neopseudosuchians, already finding themselves in a difficult position, lost a considerable amount of their former diversity. But not all lineages went extinct. The unassuming generalist Aurisuchians were quick to adapt and took their new niches by storm. Now they are one of the most successful surviving lineages of this lost age, found in every continent except Kamura in the north, and they populate all oceans of Karun. Since there's too much to cover for one video, I decided to go through all species grouped by continents, starting with Arum, the largest landmass of this world. I will also cover the two marine families in their own video, but for now we are focusing on the terrestrial species. Every family is present on Arum, so I thought this would be a great starting point for our overview. Soon, I will make more detailed species profiles for some of the Aurisuchians presented here. For example, the Aitan, a species I first designed for this clade. It belongs to a family called the Regalisuchids, a family of mostly large and bulky Aurisuchians. The southern forest steppes of Arum were taken by the second largest terrestrial Aurisuchian alive. Nicotyranus atrox, or Aitan as the Masuk call it. Growing to 16 meters or 52.5 feet long at a weight of 18 metric tons, these Regalisuchids are the largest terrestrial predator found on Karun. Regalisuchids are characterized by short and powerful necks and a generally bulky and muscular build, as well as very powerful bites. The skulls are robust and wide with relatively small fenestrae. Regalisuchids and a few other Aurisuchian families develop traits that set them apart from other archosaurs. While they are diapsids, derived Aurisuchian skull anatomy is characterized by a fused temporal fenestra. The supratemporal and lateral temporal fenestra have fused into a single, almost circular opening. The jugal moved outwards and leaves a substantial gap between itself and the skull. The jugal still connects to maxilla, postorbital and quadratojugal, but it leaves a lot of space. In Regalisuchids, the space is filled with the powerful jaw musculature that attaches high up on the sagittal crest, formed by an enlarged parietal bone. The Aitan has the strongest bite of any land animal both on Earth and Karun, with a bite force of almost 100,000 newtons. Their thick, deeply rooted teeth make this powerful jaw suited for crushing bone. Aitan are massive predators, going after large animals like sauropods. Juveniles, on the other hand, are rather slender and suited for pursuing smaller prey. Aitan are omnivorous to a degree, sometimes feeding on the leaves and seeds of trees. Males of the species are nomadic, while females settle in a defined territory. Nicotyranus has a reputation for being highly aggressive and territorial. Females often come to blows with one another, fiercely fighting over territory. Additionally, the Aitan is notorious for eliminating other large macropredators it considers competition, limiting the spread of Thanatonics and Archosaurs into the southern forest steppes. Archosaurus is another large predatory Regalisuchid found in the southwest of Arum. The larger species Archosaurus titanophonius, the Titan Slayer bear lizard, named Atucumaha by locals, can reach 13.5 metric tons in weight. Like the Aitan, they have extremely powerful jaws and a stocky muscular build. Atucumaha also regularly takes on sauropods considerably larger than itself, but like the Aitan, it also occasionally feeds on plant matter. In their southern reaches, Atucumaha sometimes encounter Aitan, and the forest steppe tyrants aren't very fond of their presence. Something the second Archosaurus species doesn't have to worry about. The island bear dragon, or Archosaurus occidentalis, is a smaller species within the Archosaurus genus, endemic to the islands west of southern Arum. They do not differ much from their larger cousin, only having slightly longer legs and a slightly less bulky build. Otherwise, they are only distinguishable from the Atucumaha by coloration and size, being considerably smaller at just 9 meters and 6 metric tons. Archosaurus occidentalis likely descends from Archosaurus titanophonius individuals, or a common ancestor that migrated to these islands during a time of lower sea levels. While being smaller than the mainland species, the island bear dragon still is the apex predator of its environment. It simply isn't as large due to large prey items not being very abundant here. Another mainland Regalisuchid of similar size is the Ukamakwa, or Droiosuchids pyrocanthus. For a Regalisuchid, it has untypically long legs and proportionally large ears. It has thinner skin than its relatives, and its osteoderms have formed into prominent dorsal plates. These plates, along with a bright extendable duolab, do serve a display purpose, but most importantly, these structures increase the animal's surface area. Droiosuchids lives in the thorn savannas and semi-arid deserts south of the Arumian tropics, a hot environment where heat dissipation becomes especially important for a relatively large predator. Finally, we have the leafback bear dragon, a large predator of the inner tropics on Arum. It is the only primarily quadrupedal Arumian Regalisuchid, but it still has the ability to stand on its hind limbs, which they often do in intraspecific combat. Like all Regalisuchids, they are primarily carnivores, but still eat plant matter, even more so than other representatives of its family, since they have better access to more nutritious fruits. Leafback bear dragons are sometimes even observed fishing, like our modern-day grizzly bears. Like the Ukamakwa of the desert, they have jagged osteoderms and dorsal plates covering their backs, but they don't really play a role in heat dissipation. These ornaments rather help breaking the animal's silhouette in front of the background, together with the green coloration providing excellent camouflage, making it a feared predator among the tribes of this jungle. I already mentioned an Aurisuchian that inhabits hot and arid environments, but the next family we will be looking at is especially common in desert habitats. The small to medium-sized Sicaodontidae, named so for their serrated, dagger-like teeth, belong to the same superfamily as the Regalisuchids, the Styracosuchids, other than it might seem. They are much more slender and lightly built than the heavy and muscular Regalisuchids. Another characteristic of this family are particularly large ears, again aiding in heat dissipation. The largest member of the family is the harat, or Hamada-venator Sicaodon, at a length of 5.2 meters and a weight of 400 kilograms. It inhabits a hot and arid region in the northern subtropics, flanked by a tall coastal mountain range, creating a rain shadow. The name Hamada-venator reflects this Aurisuchian's habitat, a rocky desert where the winds carry away most finer material into the inland erg, a sandy, partially even more arid desert. Characteristic features of the Sicaodontids, like the harat, include larger and orbital fenestrae, a dorsal sail, and a hump beginning above the base of the tail. This fatty hump allows the animal to store energy so it can survive for a longer time without eating. All Aurisuchians do this to some extent, but in Sicaodontids it's especially extreme. The animal can go for weeks without food, and further adaptations of its stomach and kidneys allow it to go without drinking for weeks, similar to camels, which is why Sicaodontids are also nicknamed camel drakes. Harat can do well without drinking for up to a month if necessary, getting enough hydration from prey animals or stored water. In its habitat, temperatures of more than 50 degrees Celsius during high noon are a common occurrence, and the harat spends this time resting in shadowy caves and canyons or around trees near water sources. At dusk, it goes out to hunt. Sicaodontids have blade-like serrated teeth, designed for cutting and shredding through tissue, causing heavily bleeding wounds. Heavily armored prey is uncommon in the hot desert, which is why Sicaodontids don't need the crushing teeth of their Regalisuchid relatives. Harat mate for life, but unlike the Ferronychids, which do so as well, they drive away their young at only around 1 year old. Further inland lives the common erg shark, or Herrinichacarius vulgaris. It shares a lot of similarities with the harat, but is smaller and more lightly built, with longer legs for a more efficient stride. The harat also is a cursorial predator, but the erg shark clearly surpasses it in terms of endurance. It also has a fat hump and large ears, as well as a triangular dorsal sail. The eyes are protected from the sun's glare by the brows and the black stripes running down the face, beginning at the eyes and ending at the lips, somewhat resembling a cheetah's tear streaks. The erg shark has webbing between its toes and relatively broad feet, which provide stability on the sand. Our final Arumian Sicaodontid is the desert dire hare, or Sucholepis dirus. It is the smallest of all three, but also the most widespread one, found in the rocky Hamada the harat calls home, as well as the sandy deserts further inland where we can find the common erg shark, but also in the thorn savannas and arid scrublands further south. Desert dire hares are the most social of the three and are often found in groups of up to a dozen individuals. They hunt larger prey in packs and even take turns caring for their offspring. Before moving on to the next order of Aurisuchians, the Droiosuchids, I'll begin with the Electrognathids, a family with only one extant representative, the Tachuca or Electrognathids megalodon. It descends from a lineage later splitting into Droiosuchids and Electrognathids. The species is common in the southern prairies and forest steppes. Electrognathids retained the more basal body plan of early Aurisuchians. At 600 kilograms, it is a relatively small Aurisuchian, but certainly not to be underestimated. Tachuca can maintain a steady jog for miles, but other than Droiosuchids and Ferronychids, they prefer short-distance bursts in which they can accelerate to 60 km per hour. Tachuca have powerful hind limbs that allow them to deliver devastating kicks. The spurs on their feet are used in intraspecific combat, but their strangest weapon likely are their jaws. Electrognathids has, like its name suggests, electric organs located behind the bottom jaw and in the tip of the snout. The current can be conducted through iron or copper-infused teeth and highly conductive saliva mixed with sticky moisture-trapping polysaccharides, which the Tachuca can also spit for a ranged attack, which it usually does to deter opponents. But most of the time, it tries to bite its prey at the back of the neck or head to conduct the current directly into the brain, stunning or even killing the victim. To a human, the shock could be lethal. To protect itself, the Tachuca's brain case, eye sockets and olfactory organs are lined with a fatty insulating tissue. Additionally, the brain is pushed far back into the skull. Tachuca have a reputation among natives for being quite hostile and attacking humans out of boredom. Their fringe adaptations might make them unique among Aurisuchians, but they sure are prolific predators of southern Arum. Moving back north of the equator, we encounter our next family of Aurisuchians, the Droiosuchids. Droiosuchids are a group of mostly small to medium-sized Aurisuchians and remarkable long-distance runners with proportionally long, powerful legs, barrel-chested bodies, tall neural spines, and the most derived respiratory systems of all Aurisuchians. While most of them aren't particularly large, we are going to start with the greatest exception right away. Meet the Karun, or pterodon floody, at 14.5 metric tons, among Karun's largest land predators, and probably the longest one at 17 meters or 55 feet. Relatively robust for a Droiosuchid, it prefers ambush hunting, while also maintaining its family's core adaptations. The tall neural spines allow for more muscle attachment in the tail and leg area, improving the Droiosuchid's ability to accelerate quickly and keep up their speed for kilometers. Despite its size, the Karun is no exception, and at 40 km per hour, it is fast for its mass. All Droiosuchids have strongly serrated teeth, elongated fangs for gripping and a wide jaw opening angle, but the Karun puts all of them to shame with its prominent iron-infused tusks and a gape of 95 degrees. Despite being close to the Atan in size, the Karun hunts mostly smaller prey, which it grabs with its massive jaws, piercing its fangs through the brain, spinal cord or the internal organs. Its scientific name, meaning Flood's terror tooth, plays onto this, referring to Flood III, commonly known as Flood the Impaler, since impalement was said to be his favorite method of execution. The other Droiosuchids found on Arum might not look too impressive compared to the Karun, but they certainly are among the most prolific hunters of the northern prairies, like for example the Kulrak, meaning horse slayer in the local language, a much smaller relative of the Karun. At 650 kilograms heavy and 7 meters long, it isn't large, but what it lacks in size it makes up with speed and endurance. Its scientific name, Hippophonius striatus, translates to striped horse slayer, and like its common name, refers to its main prey, which consists mostly of ungulates like wild horses. The Kulrak is covered in a confusing striped pattern, blurring its outline to its prey and offering camouflage in its grassy environment. When they selected a prey animal and separated it from its herd, They either catch up immediately or run it to exhaustion, before pinning it down and piercing its throat with long iron-infused fangs. Living on the other side of the great river Uskadun is the Karun, a Droiosuchid not too different from the Kulrak. The Karun comes at roughly the same dimensions, but it is more robust than its eastern relative, exceeding the Kulrak's mass by almost 200 kilograms. Its scientific name, meaning knife crocodile, is again a reference to its long, iron-reinforced fangs typical for Droiosuchids. The Karun doesn't differ much from the Kulrak other than its size. It also is a pursuit predator, hunting mainly ungulates in the vast northern prairies. The fourth Droiosuchid found in Arum, and the namesake of its family is the Karun, or Droiosuchus velox, which very straightforwardly means swift-running crocodile. It is the smallest representative of its family, but also is the fastest Aurisuchian alive, able to reach 90 km per hour, making it the fastest known bipedal animal, although it usually slows down to 60 over longer distances. The next family we will be discussing are the Ferronychids, a family closely related to the Droiosuchids. They share some overall similarities with Droiosuchids in terms of anatomy, and they also are good long-distance runners. What sets them apart from other Droiosuchoids are traits like their longer, more powerful forelimbs, four-fingered hands with opposable thumbs, and fur-like filaments covering their bodies. Furthermore, Ferronychids are highly intelligent, some of them being among the most intelligent life forms on Karun. Arum offers us 3 species of Ferronychids. 2 of them belong to the same genus, Sauropus, referred to as Makun in the works of Masuk naturalists. The larger species is Sauropus sylvestris, the forest lizard wolf. The second smaller species is Sauropus patentere, or lizard wolf of the open lands, referring to its prairie habitat. In terms of skeletal anatomy, they are no different besides their size, but they are clearly distinguishable by their coloration. As sylvestris, the Makun, has a grey coat, while as patentere, the steppe Makun, has a brownish-orange coloration. Another thing that sets the Ferronychids apart from the other families discussed so far is clear sexual dimorphism. While both sexes do not really differ in size, they do so in coloration and pattern. The quilled mane of males in both species of Makun is colorful, whereas females have simple darker manes. Males have 2 long stripes running down each of their flanks, while females have a striped pattern running down their backs. Ferronychidae means iron claws, and looking at their claws it becomes obvious why that is. These sharp curved claws, as well as the teeth, are stained a deep red, bearing from iron deposits reinforcing these structures. Ferronychids have serrated teeth to tear through skin and flesh, while elongated, deeply rooted fangs aid in gripping. These animals also possess venom, a mix of neurotoxins and hemotoxins. It paralyzes their prey and acts as an anticoagulant, causing massive blood loss. But this is not the only characteristic that allows Ferronychids like the Makun to take down prey larger than itself. As already stated, they are highly intelligent. Furthermore, they are able to form complex social structures. Both species of Makun are pack hunters and very social. The forest Makun, as sylvestris, was eventually domesticated by the Masuk. Since then, different breeds emerged, largest of them being the War Makun, a bulky muscular breed weighing half a ton fully grown. They are especially ferocious but also very loyal defenders of their handlers. War Makun are of course used in combat, but also for hunting. There is a number of other breeds of domestic Makun, but this topic likely needs its own video. The second genus of Ferronychid native to the southern forest steppes is the Nechitaran, the dragon cat, or Dracophilus aurea. It is the smallest species of Ferronychid, but highly successful in this region controlled by a titanic apex predator, the Atan. In the presence of this giant, most predators here are under 2 tons, and Dracophilus is no exception. Nechitaran live in small groups and are, like all Ferronychids, quite social. To Atan there are real nuisance, since they are common nest raiders and attack juveniles. Often, a few individuals distract the mother, while others take the eggs in her absence. Among locals, these animals are considered pests, since they not rarely come and raid villages at night in search of food. And even a single Droiosuchids can pose a threat towards an adult human, even if they are relatively small. They are still big enough to attack you in defense, and their serrated teeth, in conjunction with their anticoagulant venom, can tear nasty lethal wounds. Arumian Ferronychids might look diminutive in comparison to their more famous relatives of the southern continent, which we will discuss soon, but their adaptations and complex social behavior make them highly successful in this part of Karun. The final family discussed in this video belongs to an entirely different branch of Aurisuchians, the Styracosuchids. In particular, we are talking about the Styracosuchidae, a family consisting of 3 genera exclusively found on Arum. Styracosuchids are quite different from the other Aurisuchians discussed so far. They are mesothermic, walk on all fours in a semi-erect stance, and have a skull structure closer to the more basal Aurisuchians. Their most unique feature, though, are the thorns growing from their backs. The nominative species of this family is Styracosuchus vulgaris, the common antlerback. It is named so for the antler-shaped thorns running down its back in 2 parallel rows. In all Styracosuchids, these characteristic ornaments are composed of a bony core deeply embedded into the skin with a layer of keratin on top. These mostly serve for display, as Styracosuchids lack color vision and therefore do not sport striking colors for that, but they are also used as defense. These spikes, in combination with the animal's low stance, can sufficiently block attacks from above. But these spikes are also heavy and weigh the animal down. On land they are quite slow, but Styracosuchids are semi-aquatic anyways. They cannot truly swim for more than a few strokes, being extremely dense, but they sink and can move along the substrate with surprising ease. Like the hippos this resembles, Styracosuchids are herbivores, but they also consume underwater vegetation and don't need to come out for grazing every time. In the river deltas and estuaries of the Orahu wetlands, the common antlerback has largely outcompeted hippos, mostly thanks to better defenses against predators, a slower metabolism, and a greater reproductive rate. Further inland lives the Hujukan, the largest Styracosuchid by a considerable margin. At 13 metric tons, adults rarely have natural predators. Their powerful and muscular tail also make for dangerous weapons. The Hujukan or Cantrosuchus bicadorsum also shares the temperament of a hippo. They are quite territorial and aggressive and kill many locals every year. The Kashikan or Spinoterra lacunae, the spine swamp terror, shares that aggressiveness, despite being a lot smaller than its relative. The Kashikan is the smallest Styracosuchid, but its habitat reaches from tropical wetlands near the equator up into the northern prairies of the warm temperate zone. Kashikan are much smaller than Hujukan, and they are easier to fend off, with their hide actually being penetrable, but it still is a dangerous creature that can snap you in half if it wanted to. It is not unheard of in nature for herbivores to occasionally feed on meat for extra nutrients. Styracosuchids are no exception and will happily take carrion or small game here and there. To them this includes humans, especially children. There are accounts of Kashikan actively going after children playing at the riverside and dragging them into the water. They often let themselves sink and sit on the riverbed waiting for prey to drown. These attacks are rare in Styracosuchids overall, but Kashikan seem to be more omnivorous than their relatives and especially prone to hunting and killing smaller animals aside from their plant-based diet. With these 19 species, we are finished with the first episode discovering the Aurisuchians. I really was looking forward to introduce these guys to the project, since they are actually based on creature designs I came up with as a child. That might be the reason why they're definitely not the most grounded thing added to this project, I gotta admit, but through this video I also began to appreciate pseudosuchians more in general, as well as the Jurassic era, which unfortunately is rather underrepresented in media. The Aurisuchians sure won't stay the only weird clade of highly derived pseudosuchians. This episode took a long time to make, and the follow-ups likely will as well, since I have to make a ton of artwork for an entire clade, but I'm having a lot of fun with these creatures. Next time we will take a closer look at the Atan, before moving on with the southern continent of Oceania, where several species of Ferronychid rose to legendary status. With that, thank you for watching. Until next time.